Welcome live from Luxembourg. Welcome to the second day of the ENOSS Conference. You might recognize me. I'm Jonas Tulewski. I'm the moderator here with Pascal Schaul. We have 4 panelists who I will introduce right now before we watch the film, so that after the film we can jump right into the discussion. So here with us will be Kairis Ulp. She is a policy officer in the sport unit at the European Commission in Brussels. She has been an athlete in basketball and studied sports and physical education. Hello Kairis, and great that you are with us here. She turned on her camera already. Just quickly wave into the camera so that everyone can see you. Perfect. And we will have the chance to speak just after the film. Thanks for being with us. We have Tom de Groen. He is from the Netherlands, National Coordinator of the Expert Center for Secondary Education and Topsport. He is involved in water sports, kite surfer himself, coaches also sailing. I'd love to see that. I'm a sailor myself, but you might have some skills to teach me. So when I come to the Netherlands next time, I will ask you to teach me a bit. He studied medicine and is a practicing physiotherapist. Hello, Tom. Wave into the camera. Great that you are with us today. Our next panelist is Erla Ragnarsdottir. She is from Iceland and a principal of the Flensborg School. She is a former history teacher, now a headmaster, trained handball and soccer, and is also a parent and has the parent perspective because her son recently graduated from the sports academy. And then we have, hello Erla, first of all, wave, hello, great to see you. And then we have with us here live in the studio, Raymond Conzemius. He is from Luxembourg. He is the Assistant Sports Director of the National Olympic Committee in Luxembourg, has been a track and field athlete, and still holds the record, the Luxembourgish record in high jumping, 2 meters and 22. He's also been a coach, so brings the coaching perspective into it. Welcome, Raymond. Also waving in the camera quickly. And then we are moving over to presenting the film, because we will talk in the roundtable discussion about envisaging the sports school in 2030. And before that, we will have a sneak peek in what school stakeholders here in Luxembourg think about the ideal sports school. And I give over to Pascal, who will introduce the film before we show it to all of you.
Yes, thank you, Jonas. I would like to add also, because I think that's also important, that Raymond Conzemius, he was the founder of the Sportlycée Luxembourg. So before he went to the National Olympic Committee for a new challenge, we both together tried to build up this school. So he has also this perspective, not only from the National Olympic Committee, but also from the sports school part. That was important for me to say. Now coming to the film, yes, we tried to make an inspirational short video film, and we asked members of the school community and at the Sportlycée what would be important for them to imagine the ideal 2030 sports school. And we did not cut anything, so these are the opinions and statements from these stakeholders. So, and it might give us a first impression about what could be fields of discussion in this roundtable. So please enjoy the film, and I think it will be a good kick-off for our discussion.
Thank you, Pascal. Let's watch the film.
In an ideal sports school, you have the best training conditions, which are guaranteed by the best training facilities, the best equipment, very good trainers, very good teachers, a good relationship between trainers and teachers, to have good friends, which are the other students, and finally to have a very good atmosphere.
Am Anfang der Wichtigste ist für mich, dass alles auf einem Campus ist, das ist Schule, Internet, Kantine und all die verschiedenen Sportinfrastrukturen.
Konvivialität. Ich denke, dass wir am Campus ein Klima von Offenheit und Freundlichkeit kreieren, wo jeder motiviert, dass wir hinzukommen. Dann trägt das dazu bei, dass jeder sich wohlfühlen gerne an Schule könnt, gerne an Sport könnt und durch besser Performance kann aufrufen.
Eng ideal Sportschule ass eng Schul vu kurze Weer, eng familiär Atmosphär. A fir mech joch eng Schul, wo en den Dach kann verbringen an wo en eng Rekup huet, awer auch die sportlech Liichtung kann weisen.
Engagiert Profen, die auch verstehen, dass wir neben der Schule auch ganz viel Zeit am Sport müssen verbringen.
I basically think that a sports school should have people all having the same philosophy, having the same attitude, general view of all the people working in the school, together with all partners.
Von einer idealer Sportschule erwarte ich mit der Unterstützung von den Services, von den Profen, mehr von den Schülern. Aber für das gut klappt, braucht man eine gute Kommunikation an den Medien. Ich finde noch gesund essen als wichtig für alle bei Sportlern.
What's crucial is to have a good communication between all actors and for everyone to be ready to make some compromises.
An ideal sports school is a place where student athletes can combine their sports and studies, and where all stakeholders are passionate about their work and enjoy working together.
I think a sports school needs a whole bunch of different services that ranges from school support, tutoring for the young students, but also more with regard to sport, sport psychology, nutrition, physiotherapy, strength and conditioning. So I think it's a whole package, and in order to be successful, you need this whole package to get the maximum out of it.
Dabei ist es wichtig, dass man eine intern multidisziplinarische Equipe Terrain haben, wo dem Schüler zur Verfügung steht, sodass man nicht nur draußen muss gehen, für darüber zurückzugehen.
A well-developed mentoring project for the different students to help them find their ways during their sporting and studying career, to combine both. I think a lot of athletes have many questions, and they need people that help them find the answers to those questions. And having answers to questions helps a lot to keeping focused and to have also a life balance that's good.
What's important is to have a person who has an overview of the training schedule and the volume of the school, so that the student doesn't get overloaded over time.
In an ideal sports school, there should be many services, I would say, and I think it's very important that we start to professionalize also the support services for talented young athletes. Very often they are just used in high-level sports, and I think it's very important to start very early to professionalize them.
Für mich soll ein Athlet am Zentrum von allem stehen. Der heißt, ein Athlet trainiert sich hin, trainiert sich seine schulische Leistung, trainiert sich seine sportliche Leistung und trainiert sich aber auch sein familiäres Umfeld. Das heißt, all diese Sachen muss betrachten, muss analysieren und muss noch an den Fokus stellen. Ein Athlet ist den auch soll mündig sein, der soll seine Entscheidungen holen und den auch dabei soll bestmöglich betreut werden.
The sports school should not make all the decisions for the student athletes, but involve them in the decision-making process.
An ideal sports school has to have several factors, I think. Flexibility, support, and also accountability, to make clear that the young students are in the center of their own project, that they are responsible for it, and also for all the support people, that they know that they need to deliver the right quality of support as well.
Die wichtigste Sache ist das Time-Managing für die Balance zwischen Sport und Schule zu halten. Dazu gehört, dass Prüfungen gut verteilt sind und nicht so viele Hausaufgaben für einen Tag sind.
The recovery aspect is hugely important in a sports school, so the sports school should provide the student athletes different areas where they can recover, relax and chill between classes and training.
What a sports school shouldn't do is making pressure, and should not focus too much on the end result in performance. because we should focus on the process, on the way, and coordinating, integrating, and not on results.
An ideal sports school shouldn't organize everything for the students to see the student athletes as consumers of the system, but an ideal sports school should empower the student athletes to be able to use their life skills on their own to have a successful dual career.
Wenn ich Direktor wäre, da gebe ich aufhören, dass Schüler einmal an der Woche so eine Wellnesskur haben, wo sie einfach nur entspannen können und abschalten können.
If I were a headmaster of a sports school, I would provide the students with recovery infrastructure such as chill-out rooms so that the students can recover between lessons and trainings.
Als Direktor gebe ich mehr Learning by Doing aufhören, wie zum Beispiel Projekte, wo nicht just Lehre bewertet wird, mehr auch Kreativität und Verständnis.
I think we had a great first sneak peek into what a sports school in 2030 should look like, could look like, and what it should not do on the other hand. Let us start right into the discussion by talking a little bit about a statement that we found in a very controversial study in 2008 by the sports sociologist Eike Emmerich. He compared the sporting success in high-level sports between athletes that have taken part in a sports school and those who haven't. And he came to the conclusion that the sporting success of those athletes visiting a sports school has not been significantly higher than the sporting success of those who haven't visited a sports school. And we don't want to talk really about the study, but we want to talk about, based on these findings, on the question, why do we need a sports school at all? And I would love to start with Kairis Ulp. What is your take on why we need a sports school at all?
Hello, good afternoon from Brussels. It is an honor and pleasure to be here with you today. And I think, first of all, I would like to say that we saw a very nice film about the expectations about the ideal sports school. And if I would be some years younger and a student athlete, then I would like to study for sure and this sports school that was described. But coming back to this question, I think clearly sporting performance is not the only factor in the EU countries why sports schools are needed. And I think that we need sports schools in order to maximize the potential of athletes to contribute to society. And preparing athletes for the career of the sporting career, the real life, that starts from education. And here we speak about dual career.
Thank you, Kairis. Tom, why do we need a sports school?
I was also thinking about, but I decided to focus on 4 reasons. The first time is the intensive and frequently in a day training sessions. It's only possible for talents when home, school and training facilities are nearly connected, are very close. So, and also for team sports, you need regional talent centers close to the school or in the school. So team sports is the first thing. The second thing is to give the talents a school sports education center who understands the student. And I think we need process teachers and process trainers instead of regular teachers and first team winning focus trainers. So it's very important that they understand this. The balance in what school and sport ask every day of each student should be the result of 8 hours saved every day. That should be the result, that these students also get their rest. The other thing is we need a nucleus curriculum, and perhaps it should be, if possible, also necessary for a personal program. And when you are in a school with a lot of students like them, I think the teachers know and see that's necessary to make it. And the last reason for sport talent schools, for me it's better to say talent schools, because I believe that also dancers, musicians should be mixed up with this high talented students. That's the safety of this special need group. I call the reason I call this, because I think these are also special needs students. They have a lot of pressure to make results, and I think that's also good that there is a warm community who takes care about each other, injuries, dropouts, and there are professionals there. You can also afford professionals like for physical problems, for mental problems, social problems, and that's the reason why I think it's necessary to have these special schools.
Erla, you are a headmaster of a sports school yourself, so do we still need your institution?
Yes, hello, and quite a performance there in the introduction to the panel discussion there, and a very interesting film, the promoting film for this panel discussion. But hi to everybody from Hafnarfjörður here in Iceland. And I have to correct you on one thing. Flensborg School, or the school here, Flensborg, is not a sports school. It is a gymnasium or an upper secondary school here in Iceland, just a classical, typical upper secondary school here in Iceland. But we have a so-called subline to those 4 study lines that we have here at our school. And the subline is called Sports Academy, and that is promoted to our athletes, our top elite athletes that are here at the school. And when we came to Berlin, the numbers of our athlete students were around 27% of our students in whole, but today it is 31%. So it's growing, and it's a popular subline to those study lines. So we feel the interest for this kind of a subline, and to include it into study lines. So this is important for us. But of course, I have to emphasize that we are not a sports school, and there is no sports school here in Iceland on this level, educational level. So, but quite a few, I think we're around 4 or 5 that have this kind of a structure with a subline to other study lines. We of course started this subline because we felt it was needed. We felt that we had to include the training, the hard training of our elite athletes. And we had and have also many athletes that are competing on national level and have even gone abroad, have a contract with big sport clubs abroad and are connected with us and finish their degree here with us. So we could absolutely feel the need for a subline or some kind of a compromise, like the young student mentioned here in the documentary film, that we had to work on this. And that's why we set that up around 10 years ago or so. And it's still growing, still developing. And I think, yes, it's quite popular. So for us, this is necessary. We are a suburb here, Hafnarfjörður to Reykjavik. We have 2 big sport clubs that are very, how do you say it? They're very efficient and high-level sport clubs competing on international level, both in handball, in basketball, in football and many other sports. So we felt the need that we had to do it. So that's, for me, this is very important for the school, our subline.
Thank you, Erla. We will have the perspective also of Raymond, who has been a headmaster here at a sports school. What is your take on why we need still a sports school?
I think it's a good starting point to ask this question, because we were in that situation in 2004, 5, 6 when we tried to put in place a sports school in Luxembourg, and a lot of politicians were against the situation, or they like putting students together and just doing sports. They like putting a getter of sports people. And of course, there is a risk of that situation. And Ike Emmerich looked at some indicators on that situation. Maybe he didn't look at all the indicators, or also looking what can be the positive. So looking at the opportunities. We, Pascal and me, we saw a lot of opportunities in that situation, putting people together. So first, and thanks also to Tom and Erla and Kairis, who also already mentioned a lot of things. So I try to be complementary on that. But the networking is for me is really, really important. Putting people together, high quality knowledge, expertise, and then knowing that there is a risk of over-pampering, knowing that there is a risk of not helping students or human beings being autonomous in their life. So there are risks, and we should be aware of that. And when we have this, when we are aware of it, and we know the risks, and we have the quality of all possible ways, then I think the positive outcome of a sports school really will be a win-win situation for everyone in the system, and it will be redundant effects on each part of it. So putting all the elements on a good way together, empowering the athletes, not only seeing the athlete, not only the students, but the human being behind that. It can give so much, and I think it was said before, back to the society.
Before talking about the philosophy of the 2030 Sports School, I would kindly invite you to send us your questions or to raise your hand once you want to take part in this discussion. So you always have the opportunity to also give a statement, a very brief one, or 2-3 sentences more, and to ask your questions live if you wish to do so. I will monitor this here on my screen right in front of me, and you have the chance to interactively participate in this live streamed discussion. The philosophy of a sports school in about 9 years. How do you envision that, Kairis?
Oh, I think actually Thomas, Erla, and Raymond are probably much better philosophers in terms of than I am, because I'm the policy officer in the Commission. But I indeed have actually graduated one of the sports schools, and it was in 1991. But I started to study at the Soviet time, and I graduated it during when Estonia was already independent. So I think that the philosophy of the sports school can change over the time. We all have heard and know about the sports school in Soviet countries, for example. And now I think we, in the European Union, we live in a completely different system. And I think philosophy can be different. But with what I would like to agree very much is that one thing is it's absolutely common, that the interests of athletes should be in the center and the starting point of the philosophy.
Do you even see a necessity to change the philosophy that we're having right now of a sports school in the next years until 2030, or are you fine with what we have so far?
We did the evolution at Sportlycée when we had a school project, putting it together and getting all the key stakeholders at school together and discussing and establishing what our philosophy is. We called it the German word Leitbild. And for me, that is what we should first discuss on what is our Leitbild, our values we have, the missions we give us, the roles we have, the responsibilities we have. So all that putting together, and then there is knowing this first, and then it's living it. So it's also an attitude change. and it's a long run. So I come back to the policies. I think Brussels, it's very important policies are put in place in order to push. It's not only guidelines. We have the European guidelines on dual careers, but we need policies in the national countries in order to push a little bit that stakeholders come together and the stakeholders put in place the philosophy, which is in the mood of the time, which is evolutionary. So I think there are some steps in that. So having this right attitude, knowing what this attitude should be, so it's a change for everyone in the system to adapt it and to collaborate the right way. So many things in that philosophy thing, but we also need the policy side. Otherwise, it won't work.
Erla, as you have a school that has a subline, a sports school, how do you combine your philosophy of a regular school with the one of a sports school, and how shall this develop in the next years, if you can make a wish for your school?
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to be both practical and philosophical, because we learned now in those 2 years since Berlin, for example, those years in COVID-19, that this compromise that we were talking about earlier and the student mentioned in the film, it took like a step back. All of our students were at home. They didn't have to compete abroad. They couldn't even maybe not train with their own clubs. So they could focus more on their studies. So now when we're back to track, or almost, we have, for example, several students here now in the exams period in December abroad, competing and not being able to take their final exams. So we have to start working on this again, and I can feel there are some nuances. We have to make this compromise again and back it really up and be supportive of these students, because this took a little step back during COVID-19 and all those closures, especially in 2020. So that's like the practical point. And I would also like to mention, after our conference in Berlin in 2019, we studied thoroughly the idea of one-on-one counseling. And Diana, who is my project manager, or the manager of the subline, she constructed this method for our students and began immediately to meet some of our students that were having troubles in combining their studies and their sports. And she took, for example, one student the first semester and supported him throughout his studies, and now he's graduating this December. So we have been working on this. This also took step back during COVID-19 because they were at home, and she focused on being or supporting just the ones that we knew were having trouble in their studies or in their sports, maybe with injuries or disappointments or lack of interest in studies. But now she has opened the door, as we say. She has open appointments in a counseling room here at the school, where she invites students to come and make an appointment and talk to her. So we are also constructing that, and I want to see that develop and become more efficient. If we think about those next 8 years, you remember we're almost in 2022. Time is flying. So 2030, it's not that far away. But on a philosophical level, what I want to emphasize, and our school is also a health promoting school for all students, for all the staff. And we would like to address more mental health, for example, and that's what we're supposed to do. We're working this project with our ministry and the Ministry of Health issues also. But I would also like to address, and I hope to see some developments in issues such as high morality, and equality, for example. And this is something that I want to start. I want to have a talk with the sports clubs that we are working with here in Hafnarfjörður and in Reykjavik area all together to address this. We have a gender equality plan, for example, and equality plan for all humans, of course. And I want to see that also being considered and worked with at the sport clubs and also with high moralities, for example, too. So
it's
this is what I want to see.
The rather broader picture also of the philosophical take. We will come back to you to discuss some of the topics you just mentioned in a bit more detail on our way to through the discussion. I would like to invite Tom for a quick take on. We just heard that sports schools always need a lot of compromise. How can this further develop in the philosophy of the sports school? The athlete-centered approach still needs a lot of compromises. Do you see room for development in that area?
That's for me difficult to answer because I'm not working directly on a top sport talent school. I have more the overview of 31 schools in the Netherlands, and also I'm connected with 5 schools in Europe. But I want to go back first to the question you asked, what is my dream in 2030? I think that top sport talent schools should also be a solution for the need in the society. In the Netherlands, all sports are built up from volunteers work in clubs. And this is finishing because of people have no time or are not making the choices to put energy in the basic of sports in their countries. Dus I think that also top sport talent schools should educate people who really want to be a referee, who want to be as coaches, who want to give dance lessons. So junior coaches should be in the education as well in these schools, perhaps in all schools, but especially in these schools. Also, when students stop their study because they are not athletes anymore with a progressive program, they can be very well a fantastic, world famous referee. So when I dream, I hope that top sport talent schools take all of sport in their program, and that every athlete is prepared of a progressive athlete period, or a very good referee, or a very good motivated and happy trainer, because we need them in the society. That's the first reaction I want to make.
Well, as a soccer referee, I feel that this is the right way to move forward, but that's probably my personal point of view. Let's talk about the environment of the ideal sports school in 8 years and 1 month. So we still have the long December left, but you're absolutely right, Erla. We are very close to the end of 2021. So how should the environment of a sports school look like? And I look around in the discussion round of the panelists who would want to start. Probably we start with Raymond.
Yes, I have to react on one thing, because I don't think if we talk about compromising, it's not effective. Compromises are not the right way we should try to go. We have to do a lot of compromises, unfortunately. But an ideal sports school, there shouldn't be a compromise, because the sporting career has his way, and there are so many possibilities to study and to learn that it could be an ideal sports school and without compromising for the life project. So I think it's very important. There's a lot of flexibility needed, yes, but compromise for me is not the right word. And maybe there are a lot of anxieties in the systems that have been there. I can just talk for my country, but also when we were involved in the European development of the European guidelines, because we were second or third or last in the row to ask because sports and talented sports in a country, is it really important and so on? Do we really have to invest in that? So we are not still not recognized as a very important part in the society, and that we can play a role, our role or the role for the society. So I think first recognition of the importance of the situation. Second, an environment that gives recognition of the outcome that is possible through different methods. The learning, nobody, or we should ask, or we ask maybe also through certain studies, that our actual study system isn't at the highest level. So maybe we should change the whole education system in order to really get our kids develop and prepare them for the next century or this century. So we all talk about 21st century skills, but do we really try to implement them in our school system? We can discuss that. And I think if we did it and take a step back from all the branches in different subjects in the school, and so we could change the whole educational system, and sports would fit much better in such a system. So yes, we have to do compromises, but the next step for me should be recognize that what is done with this student athletes, what they give and how they learn, how they train, and then put in place a system that fits really well for them. That would be, for me, the best environment, where the educational environment adapts to the sports environment. We are a little bit the other way around, I have the impression.
So when we talk about environments, I think we already heard a little bit from Raymond, but I think we have one panelist here who's becoming a real expert into that, because since I've been involved also into dual careers from 2007 on, we had the chance, of course, and we needed as a small country to have a look what's going on abroad. So the European connections are very important for us since the beginning. And Tom, I know that he's involved also not only coordinating, I think it's 25 top sport schools in the Netherlands, but also being involved into this very interesting Erasmus Plus project, where he could shadow in different countries, different systems. So I think that would be a nice question for Tom, to have a look also broad the different systems. So from what you saw in your project, in the different countries, what would be the key elements when it comes to environment that could have an ideal sports school in 2030?
Yeah, the biggest key, and that's not only environment, is the student themselves. It's really the student who is tired, who didn't get the chance to rest, and that's because of they go also out of the school to their clubs. And sometimes that's a half day traveling. When I saw it in Norway, when I saw it in Barcelona, I followed one day a student, and she started at 7 o'clock in the morning, and at 11 in the evening, the final of her handball match was finished. And she had one test. So I asked her, how many sleep do you have? 4 hours. And that's not normal. And when I was in the classroom the next day, I think 20% of all students were sleeping in regular school lessons. And that's what we see. So I think it's not an environment question, it's a choice we make, that we overload the student. Because in Norway also I saw teachers giving the complete regular program, the school program. We have to focus what they need. And when they are very well doing their math, they can skip perhaps 2 lessons and be more efficient in these lessons. And that's not a compromise, that's the power to choice. The student should know how to make the journey, and the teachers should make it possible. I think that's the one big step, and that's also in training sessions. So that's the reason that I'm talking about process teachers, seeing the students in his own personal level, and have the power to decide you do this more or not more. And the same for trainers. That's what I see in the schools. And when I look to my own, it's not my schools, but the 30 schools in the Netherlands, there are schools like Erna, normal schools with 35, 40 students, but we have also schools like in Luxembourg. They have 500 students. And when they have a lot of students, there are also students who have not really the highest talent, but they are there because of the community, that high talented students are also mixed up with normal students who like to do sports. And really what I'm focused about, what should we do as top sport talent schools for the society? Because when young guys are not going to sport clubs with enthusiastic volunteers, this will end and we have only artists. We have not athletes growing in a warm society, in a warm country. And that's where I dream about and think that's the mission we have all to go in our countries.
That's a very good point, Tom. And just for all those who are sending us questions through the chat, we will ask them, but it might be in a different order than they came in, because we have a certain structure of topics and we will take them whenever it suits best. And therefore, I'm taking first a question from Andrew to move from the environment a bit further. Andrew says, student athletes in our only national sports school in Malta work very hard to balance their academic work with their heavy demands of sport training, and we notice that this is affecting them psychologically. Apart from the psychological support which they're getting, do you think we should suggest a reduced curriculum, but we understand that this might have an implication on their academic career, or maybe have extended years of schooling, for example 6 years instead of 5, to be able to balance sport and academics better? And I think this question suits very well to Erla, who has both the regular school and the sports school. Do we need something extra here for the students that are also high-performance athletes?
Yes, it's a good question. I would consider, at least today, taking more years to finalize their degree. Because we always look up to the university and what are the requirements if they want to go further in their education. So we have to fulfill certain amounts of criteria or units for the university level. So I wouldn't take the curriculum down. I would invite them to take it over a longer period, and that's what we do with our students. So I would recommend that. Considering with the compromise discussion and the environment, I thought it was really interesting that they required some kind of chill out rooms. And this, Thomas, is really interesting with measuring their day or looking at their day. And I'm going to ask my project manager, Diana, to take maybe do a little bit of a research with our students. We have, I would like to correct you, we have 230 athletes, students at our school. 30% of our students are athletes. So it's 230. So it's a relatively, I think we are probably the biggest one here in Iceland. We have relatively many of our students are athletes also. On a high level, but we have, I just wanted to address that, we have chill out rooms. It's a small one, and maybe we have to promote it more, and I will do that after this this panel discussion in this conference. We offer, for example, mindfulness periods, or like 15 minutes of mindfulness twice a week. And it's open for our staff and students, and we are trying to put this in the mindset that they can get assistance with relaxing. We also offer our students yoga, some lessons on health, nutrition, and how to cook and make healthy food for them. So we tried to support them very well with that, but I thought it was interesting to hear about, the importance for a room that they can just lay down and relax. They use the couches here at the school, but I think that we would have to work on that. So this is a good idea also. I would like to mention that.
Yeah, we have Uwe in the chat who raises the point that it is very important for the success of the sports students that teachers and trainers work together intensively. And he asked, what ideas do you have to organize it effectively? So, Kairis, I know that at the European Commission, you're not the ones having the organization directly in the sports schools as a competency, but you yourself as an athlete, what would be your take on, compared to when you were an athlete to today? You have a lot of experiences in working with sports schools. What would be ideal from your point of view in 2030, the cooperation between students, teachers and trainers to make the sports school even better?
I think this is extremely important. I think the success of the sports school and the environment of the sports school depends on many different factors. We heard about the role of students, motivating them, teachers, chill out rooms, but I think also the flexibility of arrangements, profile and qualification of coaches and content of the training programs are very important. But I would like to mention or highlight the role of coaches particularly. Because according to one international study, about 1/3 of the athletes at the age from 10 to 17 every year drop out practicing sport because they simply cannot copy these challenges they face at school and sport. And I think coaches have a central role in influencing them, both in sport and outside of sport. And nowadays, these coaches who work with elite athletes or future elite athletes should be aware of basic principles of dual career athletes and dual career as such, and the importance of that. And I think they should be prepared to act as mentors for these young people. And I think it should be the part of the curriculum when they get their qualification as a coach. I think also what is important to mention that in several, actually quite many member states, coaching profession is a voluntary position, and qualification is not needed everywhere. And according to the guidelines of the European Commission expert group of human resources of 2019, it appeared that the coaching profession is only regulated in about 50% of EU member states. But I would like to emphasize that even this is a case, then it should not be the case in such a professional establishment as a sports school. I think all the coaches should have a qualification in sports school. And if that qualification includes also additional training in about 12 career, it would be extra points.
Raymond, you have an extensive expertise in both qualification of also coaching, because you're now working with the Olympic Committee, but you have worked at the school yourself too. So what is your ideal collaboration in the multidisciplinary teams in 10 years, 8 years, 9 years, 10 years?
We had a meeting, I thought it was in 2007. We have been in Norway, and one of a director of a sports school system, he told us, when we told them the coaches are not employed in our school, he said it won't work. If the coaches aren't employed at your school, it won't work. So, and we still did not succeed in that way. So it's first, like Kairis says, it's a question of qualification. Second is because coaches are not recognized in Luxembourg, really recognized, the profession is not established. So then there is attitude. So really seeing the importance of studies, seeing having the long-term perspective on developing athletes, human beings. And third, there is the relationship the school has with the coaches, because the coaches are employed by the federation or the clubs. And so there's a governance issue, I think, in the whole. We should discuss would be the best system to have coaches at the school, sports teachers and coaches having the same, I think, the same workload and work in the same environment and so on. So I think that's we have to discuss, because the sports movement is autonomous. The clubs, the federation, they deal with themselves. They decide of whom they engage as a coach, and they don't talk with us. Some of them, because they see through the years, they see that the sports school helps them a lot and offers a good environment to develop. So some of them, they think about the next coach we engage, we want that he is cooperating with you. So that's the first step. But nevertheless, there are really a lot of issues in that subject, yes.
Besides coaches and athletes and also teachers, we have a lot of stakeholders that have to be involved in the communication. So Tom, if you could open a new sports school in 2030, how would you organize the communication between support staff, parents, athletes, teachers, coaches, psychologists, etc.? So like there's a lot of stakeholders. How do you envision the communication in your new sports school opened 2030?
Wow. What a question, Jonas. For me, I think it's important the first step, I will focus on the student. Students, I think in the future has to ask every year questions about what is for them the question to solve. I think that's the reason education should be organized. So when I look to this school, the students comes because it believes in a sport athlete's career, and it should develop this. So in this school, I think it's really a choice that this is a process. And this process can go to an athlete, yes, on the highest podium, Olympic or a world champion, okay. But it's also possible it goes to another way. So I think all of these people who work there should be focused on this process of education, of developing, and focused on the dream of the student, yes, but in a healthy atmosphere of what Raymond told us already before. It's cooperation between the sport side and the education side. But student first, and in the Netherlands, we dream in the Topsport schools that the central final examination is, once it's over, that we can make a very good examination in the school with a portfolio, and the portfolio tells about attitude, it tells about development. So I hope that the result of this school is cooperation between everybody, a good result, and the result should not be only an athlete on the highest level. The result should be a person who is ready for the next step, for a next question. And perhaps the question is, I'm not succeeded in an athlete on the top sport talent schools, but my choice is now to go for, because I'm surrounded with other talents, musicians, I hope, dancers, I hope, in my view. So it's not only focused on sport anymore. And then, this should be my school. And I say always in the Netherlands, 3 days in the school, 2 days out the school, in the society, to feel what is the next question, or is it still the question I need to answer? That's a little bit my philosophic way to look to, also to regular schools. Because not everybody enrolls like we do already 40 years, and the last 2 years, a lot of students are not motivated anymore. And I think already that top sport talent schools is a pilot of schools, nearly not in heaven, but it's a fantastic opportunity for young guys to have this already. Yeah, so that's my opinion.
So you're also referring to this athlete-centered approach and making the communication around that person a great one, even though the athlete might not succeed later on and then become a great citizen though, and to have a more broader education. And I think this is a good balance that Erla also has at her school, combining the sports school part in her regular school. Talking a bit further about the life balance. So you have to combine both regular students and sports students, Erla. How do you make sure that especially the sports students have a good life balance? Because besides the normal curriculum that can be tough for some students already, you still have this high performance sport that you have to fit into your schedule. How do you make sure that they have a good life balance and in the end have a well-being as a sports student? How do you make sure we have well-beings?
Yeah, absolutely. I have to, I agree with all of this said before. I mean, the student is our main focus. If we didn't have students, we wouldn't have any schools. So we have to be prepared to welcome them and offer them some good education that they want to belong to and are submitted to. This is difficult, but we have several tools that we can use. We, for example, during our first year, we divide them up, all the students, into classes, and we train them. We call it life skills class, that they have twice a week, where they meet and discuss and learn different kind of growth mindset, for example, mindfulness, learning techniques, fast speeding, reading, for example, how to participate in the society, what they can offer to society, and of course participate with some participation in, for example, the Red Cross or other societies. So we focus on that for the first year and give them some skills. Also assistance in looking within themselves to see what they really want to do and what are their qualifications, what are they good in, and what do they need some more support with. We give them some time to work with that. We have high quality student counselors, 3 of them here at the school. The 4th is my project manager with the sports program. So we are putting a lot of resources into that, supporting the students. We have this big health promoting umbrella that most of the upper secondary schools in Iceland are working along with and working with some projects under that umbrella. This year, for example, it's mental health issues that we are working on and promoting them with all students. So this is what we are doing. And if we look especially at our sports athletes, we are trying to support them in their studies with all kinds of means. For example, with this one-on-one counseling, as I mentioned earlier, and trying to assist them in choosing units for next semester, measuring the workload. Are you taking too much? Are you taking too little? Can you maybe take more in the fall semester? Because you're a golfer, you always go abroad in April, March and April. Can you then take more in the fall semester, less in the fall, fall semester, more in autumn? So we are trying to balance their studies as long as they go and trying to assist them by that. For me, it's a question of time, and I could see the remark with football, and since I'm a soccer mom and my son is playing soccer at a professional level, sometimes it's just good for them to wait, even though there are some glorious contracts and clubs waving in their face. Sometimes it's good to wait and finish their Abitur or their exam at this level. We say that you know, the better education that you get overall, you are more and better prepared to go along in the tough life and tough game of for example, soccer or football or handball or whatever it is. So we're trying to find this balance with him.
Referring to the football note, just to introduce before moving over to Pascal, we have two comments in the chat. One from Will, who says, just a note that in my environment, football, on the boys' side, it doesn't help to take more years for the education because they make their professional start so early at 16, 17, 18. And I believe it is key to find and develop the right curriculum for athletes that they can progress through efficiently. And Klaus adds to that the extension of school time or school years would lead to more dropouts among the talented athletes. Reducing the curriculum is the solution. Pascal.
Yeah, I disagree with that. I have to say that I mean they should be at least 18 years old to take that step forward. But of course now during long distance learning, what all of the world has been doing and using since COVID-19, since in March 2020, of course we can also assist our students if they have like this really super good chance and you know, want and really need to go abroad. We have several students, for example, in Italy. It has been quite popular for Icelanders to go and play soccer in Italy during those last 2 years. And we support them with distance learning as long as it's possible and as long as it suits their schedule.
Erla, I would like to go over to Pascal for the next question.
Yes, because there's one topic which was bothering me, at least when I saw the video, and there was one student athlete saying there has to be someone to have the overview, to monitor what is going on in sports, what is going on in school, not to overload people. And I think Tom was saying the same about sleeping. Raymond said, okay, we need coaches that we can steer a little bit also and that addict to the philosophy. I think this is something which is, we all agree on the problems, I have to say, as I hear, that we're talking about communication, well-being, and my question would be, what kind of person do we need, or what kind of tools do we need to monitor the global charge? We're talking about sports charge, school charge, and then they need to travel. So what kind of solutions could you imagine to that? And I asked this question to all of you, so there might be somebody who would like to answer. There might be somebody also out there who could have an idea. Put it in the chat, please. But now to the panelists, what kind of ideas do you have? What tools do we need? What kind of person do we need to react to that? Because I think we have to take this very serious, what the student athletes said.
All right, let's probably start with Raymond.
Yes, I'm still a little bit have to react on the comments. Yes, the elite sport is developing in a direction. We have the same situation in cycling, where they want to have talented and they want to use them in a very early age at 16 or 17 and don't care about the rest. I think that's a system we have to focus on and try to find also maybe policies in some kind of long-term perspective of safeguarding and so on. So there are a lot of views. Of course, if somebody from a big football club comes and say you are 16, you're talented, come to us. I think that's the normal way a kid will do. But then is the system in place? There are really good clubs. They try also to educate them and so reduction maybe is one solution, flexibility is the other ones, and then we come to the question of what tools we need. I think there are a lot of good ideas, like counselors. We need counselors that really know but we need also understanding in the different players, because those that really have an influence on what's going on in the kid is his teammate and his coach. So that are the people, if they have influence, they really say things and the kids listen to them, because we could reduce the curricula, because I don't count the number of, or we should maybe count or monitor the number of hours that the kids are really focused in school and how many times they spend being there and how many time they spend in really studying. So maybe we could do a study on that, and then we could gain maybe a lot of time to rest, to do things differently. And then I come to Tom's main point, students focused, really being aware of the potential young kids really have. And we don't believe in that much in that potential. So that's so I align a little bit to Tom's talkings. And for Pascal, I think experts could develop a lot of tools, interesting tools, but we need the understanding and the help of those that to whom the kids really listen to.
Mm-hmm. Ready, we get another quick perspective on Pascal's question from Tom, and then move forward with the next question from the chat. Tom, do you still hear us?
Yes,
I don't hear you.
But please,
there we go.
Please, I want to react on Erla and also on Raymond. In our schools, in the 30 Topsport talent schools, there's a coordinator. And the coordinator is not only organizing out of the school, going out of the school, but it's special, this person who talks about life. It's just the person who you can trust. It's not always going about marks, about the results of the games. It's the person who is related to the clubs, to everybody. And I think it's important that the student has a person in the school, and also this person can ask the parents to ask the school to eliminate the program. Yes, in our country, it's organized by law. When you have an official ENOSS status, you get it from the foundation, the sports foundation. Then it's possible in our country that you take an extra year. You can split up your examination because you are a talented student, and that's organized by government, and that's also my work. So I organize with a lot of people in 30 Topsport talent schools, but also in the other schools in the Netherlands, that individual Topsport talent students can make their study longer, and then they are not failing in the system. It's just what we choose together. And that's also the same, that we compromise the program, but also that we skip some subjects, because in the Netherlands we believe that the experience you get as a Topsport talent student is so worth that it's perhaps more than following a subject and you don't sleep well, and you have not the chance to grow well, and you are not healthy. That's my reaction on Erla. So we choose to skip some subjects when it's necessary to stay alive. That's it.
Yes, I would love to take another perspective from the chat. Frank asked a question, which I think is very important too.
Can I
he
just
says that sports schools
Jonas,
have all their great ideas and intervention to enhance the performance and well-being of student athletes, and obviously they are trying their very best. However, at the same time, and from a scientific perspective, are sports schools evaluating the efficiency of their interventions in their individual school context, and if yes, how? Example given in collaborations with universities, their own research department, etc. So do you already evaluate if all that what you do at sports schools works, or should that be a perspective for the next 10 years to improve, Raymond?
I think this should be put in place, having monitoring. We have to discuss on the indicators you put in place, or how to monitor what. First, monitor well-being of the kids, but also the workload. Because there has to be some workload. Training is hard, so it has to be some volume. The intensity has to be high, but monitoring the right things, and then having an expert discussion about how to evaluate what have been monitored, because I think that's very important. what's the when the objective is to improve the situation, to really analyze the situation, I think there should be a professional or university guided research on that beside all. It's not only for sports schools, it's true, but for anything we put in place. The monitoring very often is just kind of feeling, some notes we take, some impressions we have, some discussions we have, but we don't have really intense and scientific research on that. This should be put in place, yes.
I think that the monitoring, there also ENOSS and the European dimension comes right in, because for sure we can do everything at our sports schools, everyone can review their ideas, but what is the added value? And I think, Kairis, you have a great overview working at the European Commission in the sports unit. What could we do on the European level? What should ENOSS ideally do to further develop the sports schools in 2030, not only limited to the well-being and communication between sports athletes and other stakeholders, but in general, how can we do monitoring better, and how can the European added value come into that?
Okay, thank you, Jonas. Maybe now it's also a time to say how much actually EU as an institution in general has done for the dual career topic. And I would like to say that athletes' dual career has been a really well-developed topic in the EU already 10 years. And it has been a part of the EU work plan for sport during all the 4 consecutive EU work plans for sport. And there are some key milestones that could be mentioned. These are, for example, we have a council conclusions on the dual career for athletes. We have EU guidelines, Raymond has already mentioned several times. We have a report of the state of play concerning the implementation of the EU guidelines. We have the minimum requirements on dual career services. And last but not least, the dual career has been a topic of the Erasmus program priority since 2014. So coming to what sports schools and ENOSS could do about promoting European dimension, I think these guidelines that Raymond has mentioned refer especially to this point, and they mention three aspects where what could be done. First is training and studying abroad. Because athletes are one of the most mobile community, I think, in the European population, together with students, but especially athletes. And I think if there could be done a closer cooperation among high performance training centers, educational institutions, it could be a lot for them. Second thing is curriculum development at the EU level. If there could be EU bachelor or master's degrees in the field of sport, with different academic institutions and high performance training centers contributing to the common curriculum, it would be great. And third thing is a quality framework. And this was especially the question just recently. And I think maybe the quality framework is the issue where ENOSS could very much contribute. And I mentioned also the Erasmus Plus program. So I would like to encourage ENOSS to take part on the Erasmus Plus program and come up maybe with one or a couple of projects in order to benefit from what the European Union and the Commission make to support the educational area of sport and also sports schools.
Can you probably elaborate a little bit on the opportunities you have in the Erasmus program and you see on the high performance sports? Because I myself, I know Erasmus from studying. I spent some time in Paris, I refereed there, but that was on my own. So what options can you propose to high performance athletes and the sports schools to profit from the Erasmus program?
I think there are different options in the field of education and in the field of sport. In the field of education, it is possible to benefit as a student. But in the field of sport, we do not have this opportunity for individuals, athletes yet. However, we have in place a strategy or framework guidelines that support the cooperation between organizations. So, just recently, 1 week ago, the program guide for 2022 was published. We have an increased budget compared to last year. Education is in the priority. And the deadline for the projects have to be transnational, is the 23rd of March. So I would like to encourage you to study these opportunities a lot. But in addition to that, from 2023, there is a plan to come up with mobility action in the Erasmus Plus program. Unfortunately, this does not concern athletes, but what it concerns sports staff. So, and this is another opportunity for sports staff, for sports schools, sports clubs, to go to study abroad, to cooperate in different fields to benefit. And I would like to encourage again you to go and study these opportunities when these will be available, presumably starting from 2023.
Thank you. I see a hand raised from Tom, who wants to jump into the discussion on the European dimension. Tom, please.
Yes, but I bring it back to the floor of the Netherlands. In my traveling last 3 years, the quality framework of 2012 I used, and I rebuilt it with the Dutch system of auditing, because in the Topsport talent schools we have 3,500 students, and we want to evaluate every year our quality. So we have a cyclus of 3 years, and the first year everybody looks with a special framework to his own school, and then always there are questionnaires by students, parents, and people who do the work, and that's what I monitor. And also my government want to see this. So it's in the Netherlands, it's really organized to get the quality level higher and higher. And that's also the reason that we are very open with these audits to the partners. That's the Ministry of Sports and Health. That's the ENOSS, and that's all. That's the only reason that you will learn. And it's more critical friend rounds because we want to learn. And managers, coordinators, they visit all over the schools every year one, just to learn from the difference. And that's all what I want. When ENOSS is an adult organization, now we are junior, I think, that we are finding each other just to see the difference, because you can only learn from the difference and not from the same. That's my motivation to build networks and to exchange the knowledge we have all.
Thank you. Erla, you have the hand up in the air, please.
Absolutely, I agree with this, and it's really very important. For example, if I look at my school, it would be really important for my staff, the teachers group, for example, to visit. And we have already visited Philipp Struve School in Berlin, but just for a short visit. But I think it's really important for my coordinator or project manager and the sport teachers, for example, that they can visit other sport schools and see how things are done. Maybe I cannot see today my students participating in many Erasmus projects just because they are so much traveling, like you said earlier, Kairis. They are all around the world competing and going on training camps, and it takes time. time, especially now in COVID times. It takes time. So, but of course, we are open-minded and really looking forward in seeing the program for Erasmus projects for a longer time. Just to add one small thing about the curriculum, and I have to correct myself, 13% of our curriculum, we have decreased it by 13%. I just wanted to say that. We consider 25 units of 200 to the sports students, and that's why we've decreased our curriculum. I just wanted to say that. So of course it's also needed to decrease it. So I just wanted to add that to the discussion about curriculum. Thank you.
Coming to the studio, Pascal.
Yes, I was pretty enjoying hearing what Kairis said about the mobility of student athletes, because this was exactly the topic that one of the topics that Luxembourg discussed during the presidency in 2015, and we were pretty much involved into that. So we think not only as a small country, there are so many sport disciplines. It's very international, high-level sports, of course, and if you would like to support the careers of our talented and elite athletes, that's a very important aspect. So I really like to strengthen that a little bit. But I wanted to ask a question to Raymond, because especially for a small country, but not only, how important do you see a network and what we are doing currently now, what ENOSS could provide, exchange of best practice, and this kind of discussions between sports schools in this case?
I think it is very important for small countries, but it is also important for any country. That's what I saw now in my new job description when I meet other Olympic committees from small and from bigger countries. I see they have the same issues, because there's sometimes a lot of experts not very well networking together, not always the way like Tom is well explaining, and there are some countries that are really doing well, but most of the countries have this network problem, this issue of exchanging of good practice, and a lot of people are really keen about exchanging. So I think this kind of like ENOSS network could be or is a real opportunity for each one who is participating in such a network, and gives us possibilities maybe, and then I come back to Kairis' explanation about European programs. The European Olympic Committee has shared us a new document from his EU office in Brussels, a document with all the possible programs that the EU offers for institutions of any kind. So Erasmus Plus is one of the main programs they offer. So there are a huge possibility of opportunities in the system. We very often we don't know how to manage it, how to go into those programs, and we don't have the resources, the human resources that have the time frame and that are prepared or educated to go in such programs. The networking is, I think, is the easiest part. Going to search people and who are willing to cooperate, but there's always the anxiety when I can do this, what time it will take away from me, and so on. So we really need more people, getting our governance aware also about the situation that developing sports or developing sports school or developing any area needs qualified people. And then they are just willing to exchange. But very often it's a question of time.
I would love to come to a final round and ask a final question to everyone. And even though I prepared a lot here, Juan has stolen my job, but I'm very happy about that. So Juan asked the first question, which gets to the floor last, because I think this is a good final question. He says, in this time of rapid change, there will be inevitable equal rapid change in the athlete support landscape too. How do we use all of the expertise in this conference, speakers and participants, to make sure that we don't all end up inventing or reinventing our own wheels? What knowledge can be shared and how, and what needs to be individualized for sport school? So this is a question I think that takes on what ENOSS can add as value also beyond this conference. How can we make sure to exchange all the knowledge that we have here, not just today, but to see this conference as a starting point for the next month and years to come, as we're talking about the 2030 ideal sports school. I think we're going to start with Erla, then Tom, Raymond, and then Kairis as the last speaker. Erla.
Yes, I'm just going to be quick about this. By doing what we're doing, meeting, talking together and working together, I think that's like the only solution. And I can't emphasize enough the significance of the ENOSS Conference in Berlin. It was a game changer for us here in Flensborg School. So I'm very much looking forward to continue participating in ENOSS and meeting you hopefully soon, sometime after all this COVID thing. So yes, that's my point of view.
We hope so too at the next conference to see you all in the same place and not just in the digital world. Tom.
Yes, my advice is look for the difference. Go abroad. Start small and think big and believe in dreams, because that's also what I do. And my advice is look to KA122. I made a project, Job Shadowing, and that's a very simple document. You can motivate it very well when you think about the passion you want to see. In my project, I follow one day the student from the beginning in the morning till the latest moment in the night. When it stops training, then I ask everything in the school about the experts. Where do they believe? What are the keys? Where are they proud of? And the last day I do the audit, the Dutch audit in the school, and I interview the students like I do in my own country. And in this case, I learn every visit a lot. And the nice thing, you build up a warm relation when you are 3 days in a school of another country, of another person who is proud of his work. I think that it starts there, that you make yourself the decision, I go abroad, I want to see the difference. And then I think when everybody from today, 50 people are doing this, ENOSS is a rich organization next time. Yes, that's all what I want to wish you. And thanks for participating. It was a big honor.
Thank you, Tom. Coming over to Raymond.
A very difficult question. I would start from Tom's perspective of the student-focused situation. So we have this attitude thing, this philosophy thing, this what we live, what we feel. It's very important to have that or to develop that. Put it in a quality framework. I think Kyra was talking a little bit of that quality framework, really trying to achieve highest quality in each area. And then it's about networking. That's why where ENOSS comes into place, I think. And last but not least, I think we should struggle to get everybody aware that sports schools are very, very important. So many stakeholders in the society are not aware that in the world of sports, the sports schools are an essential part of it. Not because we are so important, just because there a lot of things happen. We see a lot of things. We can make changes. We can help empowerment of young, motivated kids, developing their future, whatever it will be. So many people don't see that it is here. It is happening in the sports school. So many places, so many things. And we cannot do the change alone. So, and the important stakeholders in the sports system or in the general system of our society should see that what sports school can deliver or give in general for our society.
Thank you. Kairis, the last words of this discussion belong to you.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm really flattered and honored. I would like to say that dual career has been a priority in the EU work plan for sports since 2011. And we have been investing a lot to this topic, as I already told. But also, the current EU work plan acknowledges sport and education as a key topic in the EU work plan for sport. And 2 days ago, under the Slovenian presidency, the sport ministers had a policy debate about the tour barrier, and all of them they emphasize the importance of the topic and the need to exchange best practices at the European level. So European Commission has put lots of resources under this topic during the 7 years, actually, from 2014. We have supported about 82 projects in education and dual career with about 30 million euros. So, so this really shows the importance of the topic. And yesterday, at the beginning of the conference, Wolfgang mentioned that in 24 countries, EU countries, out of 27, sports schools exist. So these are actually very important establishments to support, to unlock the potential of student athletes. So I think ENOSS should really do one step further and join the Erasmus Plus program. When I made preparations to participate in this fantastic conference, I asked my trainee to look for the Erasmus Plus projects about sports schools, and they couldn't find much about that. So there is a lot of potential, and you have very nice people, good sports schools. So use this opportunity, and I'm sure you will benefit a lot of that.
Thank you, Kairis, for these great words. And I think that this is exactly the spirit that we need to take from this conference. We say goodbye and thank you for participating in the second ENOSS Conference 2021 from Luxembourg. Goodbye.